is yours.
Great morning to everybody. You hear me? This microphone is working, right? Okay, a very cyber-active morning to each and every one of you. Wow, it's with this great venue around me and seeing you so in many numbers, feels like a rock star. People jumping around in excitement, and there is even a stage diving opportunity, so if you will, come here. But what will I have here if I'm that kind of rock star for that 5 minutes or 25? Please give me 10 minutes, organizers. Can you give me 10 minutes and 5 minutes? I will lost in my own thoughts otherwise. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the record that we will be listening tonight, or this great morning, is called Information Manipulation, and the set list is provided here. So I will actually give you it's not a deep dive into this subject, solving one single problem or a question which is involved in this concept, but not more like give you a view from this point and this point and this point and this point. So it will be more like food for thought for you guys, and I'm walking there and walking there and there, so please don't be a stranger, come talk to me and we can dig into more of these questions. But where we have to start before we go into what is information manipulation, how many of you actually have heard that term? Hands up kind of approach. Half of people, what I'm doing here, should I stay or should I go? You're already educated on this, but hopefully I will be able to give you something on the matter. The first question that we actually have to ask ourselves that do we know our information assets? Can we identify that what data and information as a company or institution do we currently hold? And everybody knows about these megatrends. I don't have to go into those with lots of more data coming from every window, and I think that the approach the companies and institutions are taking currently is they are not that much managing that information. They are just trying to collect everything and thinking that, okay, we will solve that, what we are going to do with this data, for example, next year. Many companies don't actually have any idea that what they will be doing, that massive amount of information. But the question is, do we know what we have? In many cases, the answer is that, well, perhaps something we can identify, but these kind of things like inventories or asset lists of data and information, they are very, very rare indeed, at least in the companies that I've been consulting with. Not meaning that I'm not doing my job, but they haven't done anything on that one. I did a very small study back in Finland, 2014, so hopefully things are getting or have gotten better and are better today. Just try to have some kind of idea that in the context of critical infrastructure providers, meaning electricity and water and food and medicine, all that kind of stuff, how are those actors able to tell themselves what information do they have? And the results that I got interviewing cyber professionals from strategic level, operational level, and even the technology guys working on this critical infrastructure actors with them was not that great. But it's great in that sense that I'm here, because this is something that we really have to address. If they are not able to tell what data and information do they have, the next question that I was asking that, okay, if you have any vague idea that what you are currently holding, what part of that information is the critical part for your operations? Meaning, for example, the water companies, electricity companies, what are the critical processes that you use to provide those services that this country relies on? Those processes are not the 100 processes we use in our business. It's more like 10 perhaps. And even when we can tell those processes, we can actually tell that what is the information that those processes use to provide the services. So tell me, what is that critical 1% or maximum of 2% of your whole information assets which are critical for providing those, critical seems to be a nice word, critical infrastructure services for our community, for our country. And the answers were even less promising that I got with the first one. So it seems that they are not doing very well, or at least weren't doing that well. And about any control on those assets, so how can you tell whether somebody has been meddling with that critical information? What are the controls, whether they are technical, or whether they are like process or operational kind of style, that somebody's doing something for those, and you have ownerships and responsibilities, yada, yada, yada. Limit to 0. So there's work to be done. And further on, as many of you guys know, it's not only about that, what information I, as a, for example, manufacturing company, am holding, because I'm just part of a longer chain, value chain, or a supply chain. Do these operators have any visibility into their supply chains information and the credibility of that? Well, it's a stupid question to start with the results from here, so none. But this is important. For example, consider there was a phone here, so mobile devices manufacturing company. It operates on a just-in-time process kind of approach. So the material that we need to manufacture the phones, it's not residing in our own inventory warehouses for months before we use it. It just has to come to the production line just in time for the production to start. So I, as an evil master, Darth Vader or something, I want to be affecting my competitor because I'm a little bit jealous of their incomes and everything like that. So I want to have some effect on their production. I'm not walking to their factory like, here is the emergency stop button for the production line. No, but what I can do, I will actually go to the vendor of their boxing material. So where you put these nice mobile phones and then send them to be sold. And I redirect the delivery of that packaging material to some whatever address. And when that material is not on the production line by the requirements of the just-in-time process, the production line will stop as effectively as just pressing that one single button. And this is kind of my call to action for people who are working with academics or like to do these practitioner kind of approaches. There aren't that many papers currently covering in any essence the information assets kind of credibility or even identifying those. What I got, this is a little bit old already, the best that I got is something like that. How do companies manage their databases? Now we're talking about technology and to some extent the information which is in the database, but that's just one little part. So what we need is actually somebody doing something like digging a little bit more on these information asset identification issues, some studies also on that what controls we could actually be using there. But even with these kind of studies on the databases, I don't see these figures as very promising for those companies to be effectively protecting themselves against this information manipulation which I'm talking about. There's lots of possibilities to be really spending your time in their infrastructure and with their data and do whatever you want to do with it. So if this is the situation, which is the assumption, it could be a little bit better, hopefully it is, we are leaving door somewhat open to this concept which I'm now introducing you guys to. And to put that into some kind of locker, everybody I guess is familiar with this classical CIA approach that information security has done, or cybersecurity that applies to that one too. The guys have done their job if the data has these three dimensions covered. So it has its confidentiality, nobody's been kind of stealing it, integrity, and then the information is available. And what information manipulation is targeting, it's definitely the integrity. And people have very different concepts about what integrity is about. I just read some paper yesterday, and it said that integrity is something that we can assure that when information in point A travels to point B, it will be the same, kind of encryption and blockchain and everything like that. Is that enough? Is that enough that we have encryption capabilities for information, whether it's in transit or whether it's in rest, or we do have nice blockchains? Can we, with those approaches, actually protect ourselves about information, protect against information manipulation? I dare to say no. And therefore, I would like to show you guys that how I see this integrity, it's much more than just technical integrity of the data or information. Or actually, it's the integrity of data, not that much information. Because that data becomes information when we are able to assess its completeness, timeliness, accuracy, validity, and consistent, meaning that it's the same here as it's same here. It's delivered on the time that it should be. It's actually reflecting the world as it should be reflecting, meaning it is the truth in one point of time. That is more like now what integrity is about. So we have to take care of all of those 5 nice dimensions. And my synthesis, which I also have a call for action for you guys, come talk to me. I'm even more than interested in doing some academic research and coming up with actual good definition of what information manipulation is about. But the key things that I identified there is that it's a kind of an attack that is addressing the target's information assets, modifying those assets with an intention in a way that at the end of the day, the target will end up in a situation where its operational or decision-making information has lost its trustworthiness. We can no longer trust it. And we have to live with it if we, identify that somebody's doing something with it. So that is the guy. And how it best comes to me, how I would like to describe it best, is kind of a chameleon, really. It's when you are a target of information manipulation attack as a company, you most probably won't have any kind of technical footprint in your systems or there aren't any anomalies in your network traffic or no malware downloaded or anything like that. It could be really that there is no sign whatsoever with which we are classically chasing and what we are after. Possibly it involves an insider. There are some examples that I have later on which heavily involve an insider. And at the same time, the main idea how to execute information manipulation effectively is that you just have to do things just like the business would be doing themselves. So really copycatting how things are done, but for your own purposes. And perhaps for a longer time. And if we are lucky, in a kind of way lucky, and one day we realize ourselves that, okay, we've been targeted for this kind of activity, we are facing a next challenge, what to do next. Last year, or was it this year? I'm losing track of time. I guess it was this year with WannaCry and these hospital attacks. It was obvious for those guys that, hey, now things are not working. We can't access our information or our systems, etc. So it's very clear-cut here, we have a problem. But if, by the definition that I showed you earlier, something has been happening for a longer time, and now we realize something really is wrong, the question is not what should we do, but what is the point in time where we should revert to or return to? And it could be very, very difficult to really define that when this really started. What is the first possible point in time where none of this shit had happened? Where do we revert to? For example, consider yourself as a general manager of a major hospital, and one day your IT guys or somebody's coming to tell you, okay, it seems that our patient records have been messed up for I don't know how long time. We don't have the evidence and we don't actually know what to do next. It's not perhaps one of those situations where you'd like to be finding yourself. And if and when we can actually tell the point in time, okay, that it started 1st of April, which is a great day for lies, then what is the part of our information assets that has been affected by this kind of activity? And as there was a quote on the first slide, I'm a company representative, but I really try to be very objective on this one. I'm not selling the software, but so take everything with a grain of salt. But I just picked some of these cases which I think are now kind of highlights of things that how the public life has been giving any hint of what we can do with information manipulation if we are using it effectively. Garbanak, I guess, major part of the audience in this hall is very familiar with. Guys ran away with something like $1 billion, and what they actually did, it was a very ingenious information manipulation campaign. They were serving the bank clerks and operators and finding out how they are doing their daily jobs and doing things pretty much like the same way, but just manipulating the transactions and sending the money into places which were very favorable for them, not perhaps for the guys who were owning those monies in the first place. But a very major kind of attack, and it was information manipulation. I don't know if you were considering it like that. But the guys got $1 billion, but I think that they are after even bigger boats. They are not happy with what they got. So some sources are saying that they are doing things, that they're on the move again. A very similar case with the Bangladesh bank heist. They were targeting something like, okay, we have to do the same as Garbanak if they were not the Garbanak. Who knows what the Garbanak actually is? They were targeting like 1 billion and ended up with something like, was it 18 or 80? I don't remember. Manipulating information, transactions, and they just made a small mistake with typing a recipient name. I don't remember what was the name of the institution that was supposed to get the money that they were kind of like trying to send the money to, but they made a typo with, was it the institution name? And somebody, a Swift operator, I guess, in Germany was like checking, okay, it seems that this company or institution name has been misspelled. I have to check the actual name for this company. Calling around and finding that there is no such company, and then it started to unravel, and their small campaign ended in that particular situation. And Stuxnet, nobody's ever heard about this one, but it's kind of, I'm happy that this one major cyber attack which broke the news, the headlines, is actually a very, again, ingenious information manipulation attack. Very small adjustments to operational information, and you know the rest of the results. Unfortunately, the next ones are in Finnish, but I'm sure everyone here is fluent with Finnish language, so no problem with that one. And these are very, I just copy-pasted them here because they are very new ones, just like one week, and this one is like 1 month. And they are great examples of how, in the first one actually, it was not an insider. They were attackers who were able to get access to a major company in Finland, to their finance systems, and they were surveying for a while that how this company is doing its procurement, meaning buying services, stuff, and how it's processing its invoices that they receive this. So they were surveying that for a while, and then generating purchase orders for their fake companies. And when the invoices came in, it was like, hey, come on, we've been buying this and paid. So there was something like 140, and they were already shipping out 250K when they got a call from Nordea or whatever that the company or the bank in Hong Kong is not accepting this transaction as the account has been closed and under investigation. So they practically lost the money, but then somebody in Hong Kong, so they've been using the same accounts for similar activity. Information manipulation. And the one here is one of those really like hard ones to detect. It's an insider case where it says there's a man embezzled, I think is the word, embezzled. Does anybody know what embezzled means? Stole or deceived or something like that. From his own company, he was working in accounting and was a heavy gambler, online gambling, so he needed some assets to become rich. So he manipulated the invoices and the payments of the company and transfer some of the money to his own account, and was working for almost 4 years doing this stuff. 600 plus Ks before somebody somebody really understood that there is something strange happening here. I think it has been a very profitable company if they are okay with 600Ks being lost. And the KPMG case is interesting too. It's not now this financing stuff. It's about competition. There was a case, it doesn't say where, I have to dig the sources, but it was a electronic components manufacturer which was targeted by its competitor. They have bought a crime as a service, I guess. Sounds very trendy. Kind of attack where the attackers were adjusting the quality assurance tolerances for the components in the production. So when the tolerances were a little bit wider, the company was shipping out faulty components. And they had to roll back, when they realized this, they had to roll back major sales, and it ended up in billions of dollars. And very simple attack, kind of just do a little adjustment over here. I don't know if they went bankrupt or not, I don't know. But these are some of the cases, and there is lots more potential. Those ones that we just saw were mostly involving getting money. But there is huge potential for terrorism, for terrorists to do their job, not exploding people like in pieces. It's not very practical considering the headcount. But why not do some nasty stuff for example, those critical service providers, whether in healthcare, messing up with the health records, national health records. It really breaks the headlines and is more effective just blowing up few people because it will tie up the resources of the governance for most probably a longer time. Nation states, wow, hey, come on. Power grids, even I, with my little imagination, could actually be, for example, affecting the power grid of the Finnish power grid. Not by going into SCADA systems. I think we have a presentation about SCADA systems, so the operational switches in the network. But actually adjusting production planning information in, for example, ERP systems. So how much are we getting in electricity, for example, from Norway? If we do a little bit of adjustment there, and the amount of electricity in megawatts or gigawatts or whatever that arrives in one point in time could be shaking up the balance of the network so heavily that it will actually shut down, at least some portions of it will be shut down. Hybrid warfare, it comes to pretty much the same comes. If and when we can have some doubt for the citizens of the target country that your government is not able to operate this country, you lose your trust in health services, there are no more milk in the grocery stores for a few days. It's not critical, but it will, stack up. And when the government and the officials are trying to solve what is happening over here, then the attacker can actually do whatever it was actually in the first place intending to do. Very effective. And then there are some countries, I'm not naming anything like North Korea or anything like that, who could be very well doing some activities to get their own operations financed. Competition, I just mentioned a little bit about, and then the crime, few examples there. The truck there it's just a simple example that, okay, I can actually state if there is a truck full of very valuable components or devices, why not just change the delivery address in DHL or whatever databases and send it to some remote end of the lane, and you just drop the package there, we will take care of it, and then grab the things and run. And the last one is very interesting. Now that we've seen this WannaCry, what about if it wasn't denying access to that information, but a little bit different? That the malware would be altering those operational information assets over time for a longer period of time, and then one day you would pop up with a message that we've been messing up with your information for, we are not telling how long, but it's been going for a while. If you want to buy a changelog, that's what we've been doing, why not post some 100 or 1,000 bitcoins to this address? That would be nice. And I'm a Donald Duck person. It never stops to amaze me that what I can learn from this one. This was last summer in my summer cottage that I was having my breakfast and reading a story. There was this crazy science man who had been actually manipulating, I don't know what Antikainen, the place where the ducks live, is called in English, but had been manipulating the information there, and now this is the finale where he's telling that I have control over what has been happening. If you want to know the truth, send me money. It could be like this. Okay, why now then, additionally to what I've been telling, why it's so difficult for us to approach this thing if we don't have that much technology to support us to be able to identify this kind of address? Why it's so difficult? It's difficult because we have to understand, to an extent, the information assets which we should be protecting and select a very small piece of that, which is the critical part. And to tell whether that information is right or wrong, we have to understand a little bit about the big business context in which that information is and the process. And we here is Grand Canyon, I don't know the year. It's a park ranger, I think, but it could be actually a chief information security officer who's looking in the horizon and asking where the business is. Where are the business guys? There is a small kind of gap, I think many of you agree, between me as a ICT or security guy and you guys of the business. Many of the CISOs that I've been talking to about how to manage this and how to really have some effective protection are telling that what they are telling, they're not saying this, that what they are actually telling is that I don't dare to go to those business guys. I'm here in the ICT and I have these servers and this network detection, wow, intruders system and user-based behavior analysis, everything like that. But I can't have any control on the business processes or the information. It's too dangerous for me. This is a major problem which really needs to change. Even when there's lots of ICT guys really here, I dare to challenge you to change your mindset a little bit from where I think we are. We are very good with this technology, buying technology which is protecting technology, not information, not business processes which are actually doing the actual job with the information. Okay, the systems are, that's great. We're not very good at identifying the assets in the first place or supporting or securing any business processes or actually considering anything like enterprise risk management. It's just something in the slideware. What is the business value of this? It's not very high. It doesn't really matter how loud we are going to the management board saying that security is your business. It's priority if we are not able to switch this from something like red. It will be for those guys only that, okay, fine, now this is very important, and okay, let's do something else. It just has to be there. 5, okay. 4! So, I'll have to accelerate a little bit. So perhaps this is the next step for the sliders. And when we are able to provide that business value in some kind of way, which I will show you next, then we are really getting their interest. And 4 minutes is too little for this, but let's start. So this is describing a business, a very end part of a procure-to-pay process where we are getting an invoice, which I was mentioning about, and sending money to the bank. It's the very end of the process. This much we as security guys have to understand the process. We don't have to be a process specialist, but we understand that there is an invoice which arrives, then there is this authoring type of validating, and then it will be in the ledger, etc., etc. Because then we understand that what are the systems behind that. And we are not protecting single systems, but we are actually protecting the whole of the process from the very start to the very end, taking care, for example, that the integrity in the whole of the process across the systems remains true. And we can put more controls there. For example, we can correlate the information from HR system to check that whether the approver actually is active there, whether the approver is in the physical premises like this, because we have agreed that no sum over 50,000 euros should be remotely approved. You have to be in the headquarters to approve that kind of thing. And we can do external data checks. But the main thing here is, it is the process that we have to take as our target to be protected, not one single system. And for example, these ERP systems, usually we do have great protections, and it's it's fine. But when at the very end of the process there is one transfer file, a CSV file, which is actually sent to the bank to process those payments, that is in a public shared drive, whole of those set of protections, whatever we have in the ERP sets, becomes zero value. Now it's 2 minutes, I guess, or even less. So let's skip the healthcare example, but come to me and I can cover that in details. So to sum up the thing, businesses, institutions, public, private, are not very good at telling what information we currently have and what part of that is critical for our operations, for us to survive, for our continuity. Not very good. The information manipulation I've been giving this introduction now is targeting the integrity, trustworthiness, the trust of the information. Hard to prevent, hard to detect. At this point of time, no technology to support it that much. I do have some. Our mindset in ICT or information security or cybersecurity, we really have to challenge that one if we are trying to encounter something like this. We have to go to the business and start protecting their capabilities and processes and information instead of single systems or a landscape of systems. So from technology to really to that business protection and building up some value, then they will be interested about us. And this information manipulation, they were talking about data manipulation, if I recall it right. 2015, top chief spy officers in US, for example, Clapper, Comey, not active anymore, both of those are not active, and Rogers were telling that they are not expecting a cyber avalanche or anything going around the world and destroying anything like that, but what they are most worried about is that somebody will be doing this kind of manipulation to the critical information that the US society relies on. We had some example about those elections. Well, it's a nice example, and it's actually a very good example that nobody in this hall, I think, actually knows, did it happen? So it actually didn't even have to happen when we are able to provide a suspicion that perhaps something happened. It's very like resource tying. So, as Michael Rogers says, whatever we do in the private sector, if we have the guns or if we are sitting in our suits, all things that we do are based on the trust of the information that we operate on. Okay, that's for the show. The concert is over. Great that you didn't fall asleep that much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jani. Well, we are a little bit short of time. Maybe somebody has a question. You can just simply raise your hand or go to the microphone. Okay, right. I have to let you go. Thank you very much for a wonderful speech. And you should also know, yes, there's a present from the organizers. And on 1:30 p.m., I'm expecting you on this very stage for a panel discussion.
Oh, damn. That's best.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you very much.